Like kindergarten, everyone sits in their same seat no matter what. I was a man when I first got here. What? Yeah, I'm rebelling to that. Yeah, I'm cold. You might be cold. This morning was cold, I'll give you that. Wearing that all day? Yeah, turn it on. Doesn't matter. That doesn't count. Done that in my office.
Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody out to the Roy City Council meeting for August 1st, 2024. The time is now 5:30. Want to recognize that we have Councilmember Saxton with us tonight, Councilmember Sophie Paul, Councilmember Jackson, Councilmember Joe Paul, and Councilmember Scadden with us tonight, and our youth council member had car troubles.
Quincy.
Yeah, had car troubles.
And what?
Car trouble?
Yeah, car trouble.
Okay, just want to make sure we get that. I didn't mark that down, but it's okay. I'm going to put somebody on the spot, if you don't mind. Ann, would you mind considering leading us in a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance tonight?
Sure.
Thank you.
Can you please join me in a moment of silence? Now you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ann. Council, we do have some consent items. Specifically, the August financial statements, in which case I just got more instruction from Matt in terms of what some of the numbers mean. I've been doing this for a long time and I'm still learning. And as well as the Roy City Council meeting minutes, I forward Brittany Mr. Young's input, and you made that adjustment. Any other comments or questions relative to the consent items? Council?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none then. Do I have a motion then to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the consent items then are approved. This is public comment period. If you have something you'd like to share with us tonight, please walk up to the mic and just give us your name and address.
My name is Kevin Homer. I live at 5398 South, 4000 West here in Roy. It's interesting how this body gets together and talks about things that are big and things that are little. And what I'm going to mention is a little bit of both of those.
Okay.
So September 3rd last month, during this city council meeting, one of the items that was discussed was changing the speed limit on 4300 West. And it was decided that that should happen, and instructions were given to the staff that that change should be made. So go to the next day, September 4th, I'm driving down 4300 down and back, and I am very surprised and happy that already, less than 24 hours after the council gave direction to the staff that it should be done, it was done. The signs were up, speed limit's 30, the electronic signage was all adjusted and everything was great. So all I want to do is give props to the staff and especially to Public Works for being so fast in getting that done. It might be a little thing, but for me, it is a big thing, and it's made my life 10 times happier here in Roy to have the speed limit at 30 instead of 25. That's it.
Very efficient.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Did a great job.
Yeah. Anybody else like to share a thought? Okay, seeing none, we'll go out of public comment time. We got some presentations. Specifically, we're going to hear from the Roy City Arts Council. Good to see you, Marge. You may want to maybe identify some of your council members that are with us tonight.
Definitely do. Got to make sure who's here. So Janine Williams and Chris Garner.
Yep.
Jolene is out of town in Maine, so she's not available, and then one of the other members works at the temple on Tuesday nights. So we're grateful for these people that are here. Okay, so first of all, I want to make a comment that I hope you take to heart. We would love to have your support in the things that we do. I think this last year we had one council member come to one of our concerts in the park, and that was it. So please support us in those efforts. We are a group of volunteers, so all of our time that is given is just donations here and there from many, many people that help us with this. I wanted to go over with you the budget, and I'm assuming you have a copy of that budget with you? Okay. So the concerts in the park, at this point in time, we have 5 tentative dates set up: the 5th of June, the 19th of June, 3rd of July, 17th of July, and the 7th of August. We have not met with the library board yet, and as soon as we meet with them, then we will gel those at that point. We met with Michelle and Lizzie this last week and went over several of the things that we were concerned about. My biggest concern was I have no idea on the sound system. Is it way too high? Is it? And she said, no, we're within budget and everything. So anyway, we will continue having Justin with that. And I did want to say one thing about the library board. They have bent over backwards to help us, and they even provide on the nights we have concerts. They do not put anybody in the Black Box Theater. If it's too hot or if it's storming, we get to move in there, and we appreciate that a lot. They also have a person on hand, and they furnish water for our performers too, so they've been wonderful. Our Roy Days show, this last year we had the highest number of entries other than the very first year that we did it, so we're increasing. We did have one concern about I don't know quite how to say this, entries that people being honest. We did have one person move a ribbon to their painting, and that was really difficult, but we got through that. So we're working on that. We're going to change up the system a little bit. Probably won't give out the ribbons until the actual awarding of the awards that day on that Saturday of Roy Days. So we won't have to deal with that.
Roy Days Entertainment. Chris, is there anything you want to say about it? No. So Chris and Jolene handle that, and so the rest of us are at the art show, and so I don't really know what goes on with Roy Days because we're over at the art show the whole time. So anyway, we're grateful that we have been able to work with that. Our gingerbread contest has grown each year, and this year we're going to try something a little bit different. We have, in the past, we've had categories of youth from 6 to 12 and from 13 to 18, and then adults. This year we're going to open it up to just youth and adults and a family category. We thought that would be fun to involve families. We also have talked about having a silent auction for businesses throughout Roy that would like to be a participant in the silent auction, and then they would have that particular gingerbread house out there if they won that area of it. They would be able to have that at their business and advertise a little bit more. So we're looking into that. But I do have a question. Are we allowed to get a list of businesses to send out information to them concerning this? Okay, I'll get with you then. So we did have a year ago, the KOZ Construction Company donated $300, and we still have $123.20 left over on that and they're going to donate again this year, so we're appreciative of that. Our poetry contest, the first year that we did it, we did not have anyone from the high school participate in it. We had several from the junior high. Last year we had, probably 5 or 6 from the high school, so it's starting to open up. We meet with them before school starts with the teachers that are over the English department so that they're aware of what the theme is, and they can hopefully put that into their curriculum for the year. And so that is one of the things that we have really enjoyed doing. Out of all of these events, we have to have ribbons and flyers and that will go into each of these events. And we're very concerned about advertising. I don't know what we need to do, but we would like to get some advertising out a little bit more on the concerts in the park. We have a group that comes back the same every year, but there's a lot in the city that still don't know about it, and so we need all the help we can get with that. So, any questions?
Council, any questions,
Well,
comments?
I want to apologize for not being able to make it to any of the concerts. My granddaughter had soccer every night. She's in high school, and I'm one of them crazy grandmas that can't miss a game. And always hit on the night that she played. But I'm hoping that this year it won't be that way. And so when you go and talk to the high schools for the poetry contest, do you do that like towards the end of school then, since it's
No,
in
we do it when they have teacher work days, so that we meet with the department heads and let them know when it will be happening, and then we get out a flyer to them as soon as we have the information. But that's so that they can meet with their department and let them know that they need to put that into their curriculum so that, it gives the kids an opportunity to all participate. So,
But it's judged at Roy Days.
no,
Poetry contest,
this one
that-
is in March.
Oh, this was in March. Okay.
Yes, that is in March.
Okay, because like I can go around to the classes too and talk to, and tell
Okay.
the teachers,
That'd be great.
to make sure that they do actually announce it, because it says that they get $800, so is that like first, second, third place or something like that?
We have ribbons that we have to purchase, and then the advertising, and then our first, second, and third place winners, so.
Because if you're giving them money, that motivates them, trust me.
I know, this is what I
so-
thought. Surely they'll do this, and like
Yeah.
I said, the first year we didn't have any from the high school, and it just really surprised us.
So how much do they get for first place?
First place, they get $100, nope, 50. Is it 100? It's 100.
100 for first.
First year we did 50, but we decided to make it a little more enticing, so.
And so I know Janine came over to the school the other day and talked with our foods teacher, and they're really interested in being in the gingerbread house contest.
Good.
And so I think that would be great for the city also to get some of those kids involved. And Janine said she'd get them all the information
Yes.
so that they could start. I guess they make their own cookies and everything, and so they
all.
can get a head start on it. So I think that would be great for the school.
Oh,
too.
and I did forget to mention, this year, instead of having it up in the senior center, we're going to do it down in the gym, along with the Boys and Girls Club having their cocoa and hot chocolate and donuts and Santa Claus, and we will be along the west side, I think. We've worked it out so that we can have the bleachers come out just 2 levels, and we will put them along there. And then we will have stanchions along so that they're protected. And so
Great.
that way,
yeah.
more people will be able to see them. So,
Well, since I've been on the council, this art council has grown and grown, gotten better every year. You guys do a great job.
well, we're working at it. I'm into my 5th year of doing this, Chairman, and I'm trying to get someone else to do it. They ignore me. So,
Let me ask a question, Marge, if you don't mind. The numbers we've got here, and Matt, the numbers we've got here in terms of the bold on this sheet, these are the current budgeted approved numbers? Is that what am I reading here? I know the grant funds are subject to the approval process, but we've been pretty successful on
Yeah, I think
those.
that's the budgeted figures, yep.
Okay. I just want to make sure, Marge, that if these are the numbers we're going into, that you know what those numbers have been approved to. So
right.
that helps you to manage your program better. Okay. I like it. Anything else, council? Thank you,
Thank you.
Marge. Okay. Okay, we have a couple of action items. Specifically, we'll start with ordinance 24-11. I think, Brody, you're going to lead the conversation on this one.
Mayor, council, you'll have to excuse my jacket today. I don't know if the ACs are working too well or if I'm getting sick, but I'm cold, so I have my jacket on. So yes, this is ordinance 2411. We talked about this, I believe it was on September 3rd. There was some comments about a couple of things that we wanted to add. The mayor sent some comments of which we added to the ordinance. Same thing as comes from a state statute. We're required to do it. There's a map that is put together that we wanted to look at last time. So we basically kind of did the work that you guys alluded to wanted to see before we passed it. I'm open to questions, but otherwise, it's just the additions that came about from our last meeting.
Okay, council, any comments, questions relative to ordinance 24-11?
Thank you for the map. It does put it into perspective of how big this gets and how much, where the boundaries are. So thank you for that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, Steve did that. I am map illiterate,
Okay.
so
Well,
I'll tell him
thanks,
good
Steve.
job. Yeah.
Other comments?
It's surprising how big it is. I was really surprised how far it goes west.
Yep.
Yeah, I will tell you, I did run it through, at least my assessment, since I brought some information out on the 3rd. It appears it meets all of the requirements of House Bill 206. I know I know sometimes as we're trying to organize and get these developed, there's an opportunity to try to see if there's anybody else out there that has something we can start with. The challenge with House Bill 206 is that I don't think anybody was doing it, okay? And I don't know if anybody had it out there, but certainly, to be honest with you, Brody, you and your team, I think captured the essence of what House Bill 206 would be. It would not surprise me if, to Randy's point, plagiarism is a modem of flattery. then I would think that a lot of people will be coming, or at least accessing your document to see if in fact they can build them.
And I won't call them out by name, but there's a certain city that's waiting for y'all's decision tonight. So I'm sure I'll have an email in the morning.
Okay, well, that's an interesting, what can I say? I don't, you just hope that they get it right. Before we approve stuff like that in our thing and find out what we approved was wrong. But I think you did a great job, okay? I think it talks to the issues. It certainly identifies the issues, and I appreciate the fact is you made quite a few references to the FAA's policy, federal policy governing what airports and what we're supposed to do around airports. So you did a great job. So, council, anything else before I ask for a motion to approve? Okay, hearing none then, do I have a motion to approve ordinance number 24-11 to consider amendments to the Title 10 zoning regulation, amending Chapter 6, establishing a zoning district, Chapter 20, which is the airport overlay, and then Chapter 31, which is definitions.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. I now have a second. Thanks, Joe, for the second. This is a roll call vote. So, Brittany, if you'll make that.
Councilmember Saxton.
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Paul.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Councilmember Scadden.
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Brody, that ordinance is approved.
Great.
We'll now go into ordinance 24-12. If you'd like to lead the conversation on this one.
Happy to. Again, 24-12, we spoke on last council meeting, more as a discussion item, trying to get some input before we kind of brought it back for essentially tonight's meeting. 24-12 basically amends our community commercial zone, creating what the Planning Commission termed an urban corridor. Again, this is the properties basically along 3500 West Midland, a couple pockets on 1900 West as well. What the urban corridor zone is attempting to do is to create basically pockets along kind of our main roads that allow for commercial use and then mixed use as well. Planning Commission gave a favorable recommendation. There wasn't a lot of questions. I know there might be a question or two tonight about it. Overall, we think it's a positive step we can make to help those areas that could turn into more mixed use or commercial usage of those properties. Quite frankly, when the construction's done on 56 and when the construction is done on 3500 West, I think is when we'll really see some benefits from this zone. But it allows the property owners, quite frankly, more options with these properties. So Planning Commission gave it a unanimous recommendation to the council. There were no text changes that we've made as of yet from Planning Commission. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to do my best to answer them or let y'all talk about it.
Okay, council, any comments, questions before I offer a couple?
Nope. I think I'm all for it.
Okay, if we can, you've got your packets in front of you. If you'll turn to page 9 in your packet, and by the way, Brody, I like everything I see here. There's just a couple of things I think we just need to talk about a little bit if we can. Page 9 in specifically 1013-2, which is under uses, definition of uses. If you go all the way to the right column on the districts, our UC would be that urban commercial, I believe is what you're defining.
Corridor. Urban
Corridor?
corridor.
Okay, using C as a corridor, okay. Under that, you'll see under residential, it'll be the second block down. It shows U. If you'll read down to the very bottom on that, what it says in U, if it's a U marked, it says permitted in upper stories only. You read that at the bottom of that page? U, everybody okay on that? Here's my question, Brody, just help me on this one. If you go to the general stoop, and the same thing with the row buildings, now these are building types that are within the Chapter 13 category.
Right.
It specifically says, and it's a little deep, so just work with me if you don't mind on this, but what it basically indicates, and it's kind of found in a few of these others here, but I'm going to just point to a couple here. Storefront building type It talks to it a little bit. It certainly talks to it in general stoop. It also talks to it in row buildings. So there's 3 areas within these documents, and I'm specifically going down to number 3, when you look at storefronts, when you go into general stoop or you go into row buildings, it says ground story. What it says in there under ground story is that you can, under the urban corridor, you can put a residential unit in there on the first floor. Now, they do preface that says, but you have to be the building can only be 125 feet setback from the curve. So there's a mark on there 12, and I think Brody talked about that. But what I really want to bring your attention is it says on the ground floor there can be residential. But specifically, going back now to the definition of uses, because it's marked U, it specifically says under U, permitted in upper stories only. So I'm sensing there might be a conflict, okay, in wording that says in the definition of uses, it can only be on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th floor, whatever that may be. But specifically under each one of those categories, it says you can put residential in there. Okay? And under this one, residential says it can only be on the 2nd floor or above. So I think this needs to be a clarification. Do we need to change this residential under the definition of uses, okay, on page 9? Or do you change the residential ground story where it says under stoop, under storefront, and under row buildings, and change those that you can put other things in there, but you can't put residential to keep it compliant then with the definition of uses chart?
So we can add a note, the way, and I'll throw in Wilson here so I have a teammate. The way I think Wilson and I would say that this is read is the general rule is that it's not allowed.
Okay?
And then under these tables that you pointed out, the storefront, the stoops, there's basically a footnote saying it is allowed given this narrow exception, i.e. the 125-foot setback requirement.
So it's not up on the road, it's set back.
Correct. And the
125 feet is
yeah,
quite a bit.
The Planning Commission wanted to preserve the commercial use along the main road, but we all know of the lots that we're referring to where, I mean, they're super deep lots, right? So you could essentially have a storefront and then still put a house or a townhouse or something on the back end of the lot, and I think that's what they were trying to preserve. So the way I would read this, Mayor, is that the general rule is that you cannot. However, if you get into one of these type of buildings and you meet that setback requirement, it's kind of an exception that it's carved out to allow it. So if your lot isn't deep enough, then the general rule would apply.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, here's my challenge. Intuitively, I would probably say, and some of these lots are big, okay? There's a lot of money, probably more money today to take those lots and put townhouses in them than there would be put a commercial development in there.
Yeah.
Even though the requirement says I need to set back 125 feet, okay, I set it back 125 feet and in that setback, maybe I just put a parking area out front, and the building itself is 125 feet back. Just so we understand what's going to happen, okay? At least the plan right now for about 2027, 2028, they're going to cut a corridor right down 3500 from the Davis County line all the way up until it gets to the 5 lanes that are going to be over on Midland. That's a corridor. We're still waiting for that. We believe, Matt, Brody, we believe we will hopefully see a drawing, okay, of what they're proposing before it goes for approval. And but the contractor who's been hired by UDOT to design it has been out there in force. If you have not seen the company in their white trucks, I've seen 5 or 6 of them on that road, that one road, with their surveying cameras, stuff, and all that stuff. They've been working this one pretty heavily. We're hoping by the end of the year we'll see that. It may not be till spring we see it, but they are doing it. And when they cut that corridor of 105 feet plus a 5 or 10 foot pathway, whether it be on the east side or west side, not sure. It's going to take properties. It's going to take properties. And what's left, based on what's being proposed here, is, for the most part, commercial. We're going to call it the urban corridor, okay? Which is going to put mixed use to 40 feet. I think you put a stacking of highs to 40 feet to this, and we're going to cut a corridor in there. Now, arguably, we want that commercial space because we can generate two things. Both we get 100% of the property tax on that property, and plus we also get whatever sales tax revenues are being generated on that, okay? If they're going to cut a corridor in there and that property is designated on that, according to this plan, in the future land use map, it will be basically zoned to be an urban corridor. But there's still a lot of money in townhouses. A lot of money in townhouses. And if you look at row buildings, okay? Row buildings, which is one of the categories, is residential. They're townhouses. I mean, they call them row buildings. That's only because it's just a building type, but the bottom line is they're townhouses. And you cut that corridor in there, the question we have to ask ourselves, do we want the possibility of basically losing that open space now to townhouses? Now, arguably, you can say, well, we can probably get it developed better. Yeah, maybe. But I would suggest to you is that the overall purpose really needs to be commercial. That's right. And if they really want to build apartments in there, not apartments, but certainly want to add to that with mixed use, let the bottom floor be commercial. And if they want to stick 2 stories, 3 stories above that and make it a apartment complex, fine. The ordinance will certainly allow that to happen on what you're about to approve. I just get concerned, and we had the same exact argument 3 years ago when the conversation was about downtown. And if you know, downtown, we said no row houses, okay? Because we were concerned that the Chapter 13, by adding it to the downtown district, would then make it really, really in the best interest to develop or just simply put apartment houses downtown. And we said, no, we don't want to do that. Now, we're only going to get one opportunity to make this work. And to be very honest with you, what we approve tonight, if it's done right, it'll probably never come back to the city council unless it's a development agreement. This thing will be approved and the planning commission will execute what happens after they clear that property out and what's freed up based on what this urban corridor ordinance will basically be. So we have one shot at this. Now, if 125 feet you feel is comfortable, then I say we're in good shape. I think what Matt just basically suggested with his head nod is he's saying is you can still have the code show it to be you only on the second floor, but if you choose to do that, then you just have to follow the requirements. And if you look at those, for the first floor, the ground floor for residential, you have to meet a certain standard. And in each case, every one of those building types require that setback to be 125 feet.
So I guess I do have the question that the mayor brought up. If you back it up 125 feet, can they just put parking lot in front of it and then it's just a,
They can't. Yeah.
they can't?
No.
Okay. Then,
Each section has the parking and loading locations, and it indicates that.
Yeah, so the planning commission drafted this such that if you want to do just townhomes or apartments or row house or whatever building type you do, and you have a lot that meets that, the first 125 feet is dedicated to this commercial mixed-use space.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it also really comes down to, and I don't know, I'm sure the planning commission thought about this, but just by, I'm just looking at the Weber County GeoGizmo tool, there's only roughly, in my guesstimation, 13 lots along that corridor on the east side. Again, we don't know which side they're gonna go to. Correct. So again,
I guess what it forces is there's, in my opinion, it's probably not my opinion, there's 2 different types of mixed-use development, vertical and horizontal. And when the mayor and I went out, and I can't even remember who else went out and toured some, We actually have one down there behind Maverick and O'Reilly on 4,000, where the front part of the lot is commercial, and then the back half is housing.
Which this is what that's what this is.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, which, as I say, there's a big developer in the area that's their motto. They basically effectively do this. I won't name names because they're, but they typically will do the front of lot, and then the backside is all residential. So commercial up front, residential in the back. Party up front, or, yeah.
So depending on how many properties are taken, we don't know if they're taking some on the east,
Yeah,
some
we
on the
have
west.
we have no idea.
So, yeah, because then some of those commercial
Then,
people may want, to rebuild and then, but then
then
maybe,
the important thing too is, I mean, the exception to allow just the residential is again, a small minority of the properties that we're rezoning here. Most of them will just have the requirement that they can't have just residential because they don't have the depth to do it. So they're gonna have to just do that commercial space, and if they want to do residential, it's gotta be on the second or third floor.
Okay.
No,
Well, you heard the argument, okay? So make sure you feel comfortable that what you're reading and what you've heard, you feel comfortable that you can approve that. And I just have one other last one, then we'll finish that. On the future land use map, which is the last map on the packet, there's a couple in here that kind of caught my attention, so help me walk through this. You can see from all the orange markings, okay, on the map, it's pretty well detailed out which of the properties will be under this urban corridor. As I went and looked at it, let me just walk through it a little bit, and you can help me here. If you take a look at the current community commercial, which is this sheet, and you map that against the proposed urban commercial or urban corridor, there's a piece right on Midland Drive that it shows as being community commercial, but you're not showing that piece actually transposed over to the new one. Specifically between, it's right close to 4425 South and 4450 South. There's a piece of property that we've earmarked to be, it was community commercial, but on the new drawing, it shows it not being marked as being there. Is that just an error, or should it be, or really was there an intent not to add it? Can you see that?
I can't see it.
yeah.
Okay, would you just look at that?
I think that's just an error in the map,
Okay,
the future land use map.
okay, so the intent then would be is to remark that one?
Because the way this ordinance is written, there is no more community commercial.
That's right.
So if it's community commercial, it will turn into,
Okay,
to
so
the
that
urban
space then would
corridor.
just be converted
yeah,
over?
I think it's
Okay,
probably, because it's kind of a pocket by itself.
exactly,
So this replaces all community commercial and calls it urban corridor.
exactly.
CC is now UC.
Correct. If you walk down, and I'm going to speak to the piece of property, and it's hard to see it, but let me just point it out. If you look at the property that's just south of the charter school, you see that on that drawing? And it's kind of like a little bit of a dog leg. Sophia, I think your daughter has a house right there to the south of that, right on that corner. That dog leg.
New homes. They're
All the new homes going in there right now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pure residential. And I don't see that one, unless you tell me something otherwise, I don't see that one to be a UC requirement, because it's truly single-family residential homes. Does that make sense? I mean, you see where I'm seeing? You can see the white space right there, which is the space where the school is. But just directly south of that, there's that dog leg right there that is actually showing it to be part of this UC. I would question whether that should be in that corridor.
And then we can take it out for one. I think the future land map shows basically everything that touches 3500
Yeah.
West should be this new zone. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that makes sense. The only problem I have with this particular piece of property, by coding it UC, we just now took all those residential units and made them
Well, if they're existing residential units, it doesn't do anything, right? It would only apply going forward.
Well, they certainly would not fit the requirement because they are single-family residential. There's nothing in the Chapter 13 that talks about single-family residential
Is
as
this-
a building type.
Is this a built? It's built though, right?
They're almost done.
Yeah.
It's getting built now.
So what I'm saying is the zoning change doesn't change a conforming use at the time, right? So if you have an agricultural piece of property and we change it to commercial,
That's
you're gonna
correct.
keep your cows on it for as long as
You
long
keep
as
your
do it.
cows
So
on it.
those residential homes, if we change it to urban corridor, it doesn't,
Change there.
they're still allowed to finish building and do everything.
Yeah, but I'm just saying is since you're mapping it, I would think you'd want to correct it, okay, while you're doing it, than to basically come back at a later date and have to correct it because the whole thing is under single-family residential, which has nothing to do with Chapter 13.
And if that's, we can do that, if that's what the council wants.
Well, okay, first you got to understand what I'm saying. So if you don't agree, you certainly don't have to agree. I'm just pointing out some of them right now. So the question is, first, do you know what I'm talking about?
Right, but if it's already zoned as is, unless somebody goes in and requests that it's flipped to urban corridor,
It's
it
going
stays
to
the
be.
same.
No, it changes it, but
It
it
changes
doesn't
it, but it
change
doesn't change the actual
the
current
use.
usage.
Yes, so all
Yeah.
these
No, it's
residential
grandfathered in.
homes, yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
But
So
why
what
would
if-
we, if we're going to make this massive change, and look at all the properties, because some of these properties they're talking about here are not community commercial today.
Right.
Take a look on the community commercial that's already existing.
Yeah, you're saying like that new development that we just approved that's right there. There's your, here, and you're saying your concern is,
All of those properties right there are residential, all the way back, all the way over to Midland. Those are all now going to be, under this proposal, be changed to urban corridor.
But will it matter because those are already in development and
that's what I'm
going
saying.
forward?
it's-
All built yet, but they're, it's.
it-
You know, that agreed. I mean, there's grandfather clause in all this, I understand, but you're changing the entire system. Wouldn't it be effective to simply do it right if you're gonna make the change, rather than that some city council in the future come back and says, well, why is all these guys coded urban corridor when in fact all you have is single-family residential in there? You're not gonna ever change that. The key would be is we're making a massive change. Do we want to correct it, making this massive change, or do you want some future city council member to correct it? Because someday it's going to get corrected. I mean, it's,
Well, and maybe help me, Mayor, forgive me, I'm just not understanding, when you talk it needs to be corrected in the future, what would need to be
yeah,
corrected?
that's, I guess, what
I-
because that piece of property, and it's only that piece of property, okay? Today is a single-family residential under development.
Correct.
It's not, there's nothing in Chapter 13 that basically qualifies it for single-family residential. Those are, I think we put, what, an R18 in there? Or we put a R2?
Okay.
I mean, they're consolidated close housing. I mean, it truly is nothing
Get
in
an R
Chapter
something with a
13.
development
yeah, it
agreement.
was it's
It's completely different than anything that is found in Chapter 13.
Yeah. So I would, I understand what you're saying, and again, it's up to the council if you want us to take that piece of property. The only advantage to changing it is that depending on construction or pending land use in the future, if they went to change something in that area, they would have to preserve that commercial space along 35 with the change. Right, so if for whatever reason UDOT came in and they took a chunk along 35 and they tried to redevelop that, then they would be required to conform to the zone that we're talking about today.
That's correct.
That's the benefit of doing this way.
That's correct.
If we say, well, it's residential already, let's just leave it alone, we can take it out of the
Well,
future land use map.
I guess my point would be is that, and you may know this better, I don't want to drag this out any longer and have to. The bottom line would be is we approve that, and the setback between 3,500 today to the fence where this development is set back, I thought, far enough to put 5 lanes in.
I believe it is.
because I think
It's-
that was one
it's-
of our criteria.
Yeah, it was set back quite
Yeah.
far, and the developer,
It's
There's-
clear,
Yeah.
it's,
Because there's the crash
very
gate there,
far.
yeah, you got the
That's right.
crash gate, because the crash gate had to be set back so
exactly,
far.
there's a crash date there. And so my
there are no
comment,
homes on that.
Yeah.
There's a big
It's,
strip
it's a
of,
green space.
on the other side of that fence.
But yeah,
Make it easy
Yeah.
to
I guess
take.
my question is, well, yeah, it's 6 one way, half a dozen other. The piece that I'm more worried about is where that little assisted living center is, and then that little grove of trees that's
Around the corner.
just sitting there right outside of it that caught fire earlier this year.
Okay, yeah, I can't speak to that piece. All I'm suggesting would be is that we're about ready to approve a massive change to seriously remove community commercial completely from our ordinance. And if you look at all the papers, it's really, they're Xing out everything. And we're reestablishing for the better part a chapter 13 in the heart of the 3500 going into Midland, which I think is a good move because it's going to give us some really good commercial opportunities that are not there today. I'm just saying in the efforts to make a massive change, this is a brand-new subdivision, already approved under a development agreement that is under construction, which we approved as a council, that in essence will never, ever be a mixed-use development, a storefront, stoop building. It's never fall any category of a Chapter 13 requirement. Remember, only the building types that are in this Chapter 13 can be built there. So you will not find a single-family residential anywhere in that Chapter 13 by design, because it's really more focused to a commercial environment. And if there is a residential unit, it's going to be townhouses or what they call row buildings. If you don't,
I mean, technically, the houses that are closest to 3,500 in that development, they could be tore down and redeveloped as something else.
certainly can.
Just the way any of these houses along the court, I don't know, I'm on the fence either way. I see it both ways.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Obviously, it don't have any flavor for that, so we'll just address it in another city council meeting. Let's go to the assisted living facility that's sitting on 5600. This is just east of the 2700 intersection, okay?
Well, before you move to that, back up. I was only one council member. What do the rest say? I don't,
Well, I'm sensing nobody really has the appetite to want to change it. You're going to accept what he basically have because we don't want to change that piece of property. And so I'm not going to fight it. I mean, it makes no difference. We're still going to put the houses in there. There'll be 47 houses in there. They're under construction right now. It's a nice development. And someday, if somebody goes up there and says, why is my house zoned for urban corridor under a Chapter 13 requirement, somebody's going to come back and simply says it shouldn't be. It should be coded as an R18 or R16 or an R2 or whatever it should be under the development agreement. That's what it should be. And they can address it in a future city council meeting. But just recognize the fact is, once this is approved, you will never see this again unless there is a development agreement, which means the planning commission will take responsibility to execute this plan. And I'm only saying is that piece of property should not be in this plan. That's my position, okay? But it's your decision. That's actually the only one I basically have. All the other ones I've checked seem to be okay, except the assisted living facility that's on 6,000, the Heritage.
Yeah, Heritage on 56.
Yeah. How do we classify that? Is that a business?
The Heritage Park Care Center on 5600.
I'm looking at, which map? are we on?
56 and 27,
Okay.
56 and 27.
where all the construction's at right now.
Yeah.
Can't get through 27, you can't get through 27.
Is that on these maps?
No, actually, I guess my concern would be is it's kind of like that oddball. We have one
56.
right there on 27, just off of 27. You're basically showing it. It's just off 6,000. It's where the cannery is. So Stevens Cannery, interesting enough, fits the requirement because it is a commercial development. Someday that cannery may be dropped down, and what do you want to do after it's dropped down? Maybe you want to put some type of commercial in there. Today, I think it's probably zoned, maybe light manufacturing. It probably has an oddball zoning to it. But what I think this proposal says, hey, that cannery is in fact a commercial piece of property. It certainly was a commercial piece of property. It ought to be one now under this new development. I agree with that. So under the future land use map, right there off of 6,000, the middle of the page, that is in fact the cannery, and that cannery should be that color. That makes sense. It wasn't before, but it is today. But I'm saying is the Heritage
there.
thing, is that considered to be an urban, or is that considered to be commercial property? Or is it considered to be some type of residential? Anybody want to take a shot at that one?
Looks like it's R18.
R18
Mm-hmm.
under the current code? Well, certainly Heritage Assisted Living Facility is not an R18. You know, you could probably argue that it's a high-density residential, maybe an R4, maybe an R3, but certainly an R, not one R18.
That's what it's currently zoned as, though.
Yeah.
That doesn't, the use doesn't dictate
Yeah.
the zoning.
I'm just thinking is if the purpose is, and we're taking a lot of properties and we are literally changing them into this UC, okay?
And and not to interrupt, Mayor, I think maybe I didn't do a very good job. The future land use map is there for reference. The changes are only to the zoning map.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, but remember, the future land use map is the guide
Correct.
for city councils of the future that says, hey, when you move forward into this new development.
Okay.
So any changes that will occur, okay, you need to strongly consider make them under what is planned out in the future land use map.
Yeah.
That's, I like it,
Okay.
yeah.
So we're not rezoning those.
No, but we're just changing the future. And I'm just adding, should we add the assisted living facility as an urban development or urban corridor? I mean, if you can put in the cannery, you can certainly argue that assisted living, and if the answer is no, leave it as an R8, okay? It's certainly not what it is today and probably never will be tomorrow, but
I think that would be fine to add to the future
Assisted
land
living
use.
in that one piece that's carved out of the Public Works.
that's where it is. What do you want to do, council?
Give it to Public Works.
I'm sensing they don't want to do anything. Okay. Council, do you have any other questions or concerns associated with ordinance 24-12?
No, I'm trying to get all the parcels that are related to, and they're in sequential order, so when I motion, I will notate that so we know.
Yeah, well, good luck with that one. Okay.
I'm gonna, well,
What are you gonna do?
I was gonna ask one question. It's kind of piggybacking on what you just said. Just for the simple fact is there's some pretty deep lots along 2700.
Okay.
Do you want to do anything with that now or just
Well,
leave it?
again, I said something. What I want is completely irrelevant,
So,
right? What do you want? And
so
like,
did-
that's kind of step two, okay? Like, today, what's gone through the planning commission is this zoning change. If we want to give direction to the planning commission to go look at all these parcels and decide if we should add them to the zone and the future land use map, I'll take that direction and have planning commission start working on it.
You certainly
Yeah.
can, but by the same token, correct me if I'm wrong, the city council, based on this proposal, can modify this up or down or change it where they feel that they need to make corrections or additions.
So I think
They would stay
the
same as
zoning,
long as they
yes.
didn't.
The future land use map, maybe that's a highly technical question. I'm not sure that we can alter the future land use map because of the zoning text changes.
Well, and the one thing the planning commission does is they,
Yeah.
So you're indicating the Roy City Council has to approve this as written or table it or reject it?
No.
Cannot modify
You can
it?
change the text all we want, but if we add parcels, I think that would have to go back to the planning commission to discuss the different areas that we want to add to it, and we have to notice those properties
yeah, because you don't
under
get
the
public
new,
hearing on
under
it.
the new noticing requirements.
Okay, so adding is not an issue. What about removing?
You can remove anyone that's up for discussion
Questionable.
already, yes,
Okay.
because they've received the proper notice and planning commission has,
Okay,
I
that
thought
makes
about that
sense.
just after I said 2700. You might kick up a hornet's nest if you don't give people the opportunity to talk.
The voice of it,
yes,
Because
to,
there
to
is
make
some-
any changes to those, that's where the noticing requirements that they changed 2 years ago come in.
Okay.
Because we talked about, when I was first on the planning commission, putting an overlay down 2700 and it was controversial and never really happened.
And again, if that's something that three persons want to tell me to work on, we can have that looked at and brought back.
Yeah, but we fought this one so many times. There was a proposal, if you remember, Joe, about just putting single-family residential, which is what it is now, and it's an RE20. And then we says, well, we want townhouses and we wanted apartments. My heaven, it created a firestorm.
Yeah, that's why I started pulling back what I was
Yeah.
talking about.
Well, we already have like that Janae Terry's property, which they've never done nothing with yet.
Yeah.
That-
Okay, so
that's
Okay, so then I only have two issues that we need to talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong. The future land use map, I'm gonna go back to Midland Drive. I circled an area that basically was taken off of the community commercial chart, which is on the first chart, and it was not placed over there. Are you telling me to add it to the future land use map now?
This is the one you spoke at.
Yes, the very
Yes.
first.
First one I
No,
talked
and
about, that's.
Can we
That-
add that?
That one we can add.
Because we think it was a mistake.
And that's been noticed. All the properties along
I'd
Midland
like
were
to find
noticed.
that in the code, okay?
Find what on the code?
That basically says if we make a mistake, we can basically add or
Well,
not.
we can fix it because we've notified those property owners along Midland.
We-
We notified
We didn't
everyone along-
notify them when we basically sold them the future land use map. We basically didn't show. I would have thought when I first read it, you'd wanted to remove it from community commercial, and that by doing so, not putting it on there, we now put that and leave it as residential. But I think what you said, and which I agree with, Brody, I think was just overlooked. That's what I think. And if it's overlooked, it's okay to put it on.
To add, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Because like you said, everybody along there was noticed when this change was.
Correct.
And if they'd have seen there's no change, they says, well, my property just dropped off community commercial, now becomes residential. I'm happy with that. But we're gonna say we're gonna give it back to commercial. But that's okay. We'll take it just basically meaning is it was overlooked and we'll put it back on. I'm okay with that. The only other piece would be is the single-family residential going south of the charter school.
I got you.
Do you want to basically leave that as is, or do you want to change it? That's the only thing left to talk about.
I've got it written up as far as how to motion for it, as long as legal gives me clearance. That's what I was working on.
Okay? Ann, any comments one way or the other?
No.
Okay, Joe, I think I got yours. Brian, any comments? You okay with what it is? Sophie? Yep. Okay?
Okay.
So, okay, let me do this then, okay? Any other comments or questions relative to ordinance 24-12?
No.
Okay, hearing none then, do I have a motion then to approve ordinance 24-12 to consideration amending the Title 10 zoning regulation, amending Chapter 6, establishment of zoning districts, amending Chapter 10, general development standards, Table 10-2, table of required lots and setback requirements of non-residential zoning districts for primary buildings, amending Chapter 13, mixed use, amending Chapter 17, table of use, Table 17-2, allowed uses of non-residential zoning. Do I have a motion then to approve?
So moved with the addition of the removal of parcel IDs in sequential order 0965800001 through 0965800035, what is recognized in the Highgate Cove Homeowners Association.
Okay, so that is the new development that went into the south side of the charter school. Do I have a second?
And we're taking that out of the
We're
zone?
we're
or
taking
the
that out of
land
the,
use map?
the land use map.
Yeah, the future land use map.
Thank you, yeah, that's why I was like, that's what I have.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Sophie. Okay, this is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Councilmember Joe Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Scadden,
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton.
Aye.
Okay. Ordinance 24-12 is approved based on those adjustments. Thank you. City Manager's report.
Thanks, Mayor. Most of what I have tonight is just things that I've already said, but it's dealing with dates and times and stuff, and so I wanted to hurry and go over them for you. So the Public Works are doing their dump dates for October 21st through November 2nd, Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., and then Saturday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. If you are available tomorrow night, please come out to Roy High School at 5:30. will be feeding their sports teams. And then also on October 9th, the fire department will be doing their fire prevention night. On October 7th, the CTC will be doing a dinner at 5:30 p.m. at George Wallen North Park. So if you have time, please come out to that. And then also, we received notification yesterday that we have a quiet zone along the railroad tracks, meaning that they don't honk their horns as they go through each one of the intersections there. That quiet zone, there was 4 different places along Ogden to Salt Lake City that were in violation of that quiet zone, so they're removing that. So the trains will now start needing to honk their horn as they come through until those 4 crossings come back into compliance. Those 4 crossings aren't in Roy City, so we don't have anything really to do with it. However, the trains will start honking there. The letter did say that they have 7 days that they might not be honking, that within 7 days they're notifying the Union Pacific and UTA that they'll need to start honking their horns. However, we already received feedback today that they have been doing so. So anyway, hopefully the cities that are involved in that can resolve those issues, that we can come back to a quiet zone. But for the time being, they're going to be honking their horns. And then also, we do have quite a few city council members that have vacation or personal things going on October 15th. And so what we are thinking right now is that we will not be holding our next city council meeting on October 15th. So, and that is it.
Okay. Council, any comments, questions, anything for council report?
I just want to thank Brandon for getting the flashing beacons up so fast. I mean, they've been used every day when I go to and from school. And that night of the homecoming game, they were used constantly. And thank you for getting those up so fast. On that walking trail, I hadn't been down 5600 for a while. Holy Moses, that's huge. So where do you get on it? I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Will there be stairs or anything going up to it, or just you have to go clear to where it ends?
You'll have to walk.
So what about, I've had people ask me about, what about Roy Elementary? Because they feel that there's nothing that's going to go over Roy Elementary, or there is
No.
There is.
walking, because they're like, they feel that it's going to be the same. There is, Matt?
There's going to be the Hawkeyes still there for the crossing,
But not an overhead crossing.
but not an overhead crossing.
Well, I've just heard people that go up and down 5600, they don't feel that now it's, I mean, I don't know if you can tell the crossing guard to wait till there's 20 kids or do they take 2 at a time, because it backs up all the way to 1900. And I can't believe that they didn't build something over that for the kids, because it's not going to solve any problems of traffic jams when it hits 3 o'clock, 3:30. And so, anyway, I'm just repeating what some citizens told me. And then also, I have some friends that live down around Midland Elementary that have been having bats in their house. Yeah, bats.
Oh.
And they said that some other cities, they've talked to some people that they've had things that catch the bats. Or have you heard of any of this bat problems?
I haven't heard of any problems with them personally. I know that our animal control typically doesn't do things with bats and raccoons and things. So that's a homeowner issue that they would have to contact the proper people to come remove
Yeah,
those.
she said it was like thousands of dollars to have these trap things come. I'm like,
Make a bat house.
Yeah, no,
It
the thing,
solves your problem,
Yeah,
like
no.
really.
no,
well,
it really
she
does.
said
And the
something about it.
mosquitoes. So
Yeah.
they eat all the mosquitoes, and then you build a bat house for them, and then they only come out at night, and then they come back to the bat house, and instead of in your house or your yard or your property,
Yeah.
they go to their little houses.
Wasn't there somebody that gave a presentation to us about it one time? I swear there was somebody, like in
I
council.
actually think I remember
Do you
that
remember
in,
that?
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
something.
It's big
Yeah.
in Hooper.
Yeah.
They really.
I'll have
a
to
lot
tell
of
her.
houses
She's a
have
teacher
bat
at our high
houses.
school, and she was telling me about it today. So
Yeah.
I told her I'd ask
I would do
about it
that,
at council.
Because
So
you want them.
Yeah, you actually
They're
want
great
bats.
mosquito catchers.
Mhm.
That's all they
okay.
eat. So yeah, they're
Okay,
you
I'll
want
tell her to
them.
build a bat house.
Bat house.
Yep.
They're just a small little bird box.
Okay.
I like it. Okay. Anything else?
That's
Ann?
all I had to say.
Council, anything else?
I don't want bats.
I don't either. I don't want to have a bad
I
house
don't
to get
care
them.
how many mosquitoes they eat.
Yeah, I don't want bats either.
If the mosquito abatement team were doing their job, they wouldn't have any bats around here.
Hey, I want
because-
you to know to come and sprayed for our homecoming game, and then the dance was down on the football field, and my granddaughter had on a dress that she would have got eaten alive, and she said there was no mosquitoes and there was none at the game, and it was wonderful.
No
So
bats. I
Yeah.
like it. Okay. Council, anything else? Okay, hearing none. We're going to go into a closed-door session. The meeting will be held here, okay, in this council chamber. Do need to then have a motion to enter a closed-door meeting.
So moved. Or wait, oh. What,
Yeah, strategic discussion on potential sale of real property.
so moved?
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
I didn't know we were
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, okay, we are going into a closed-door meeting. We just need to excuse everybody but the few who